back, everybody. So today we're going to have the next tasting of beer number 16 in my 2 hop series featuring Cascade and Centennial. This brew used 2 pounds of 2-row, 4 ounces of honey malt. For the hop additions, 1 hour boil, 0.25 ounces of Centennial at 60, 0.25 ounces of Cascade at 10, 0.25 ounces of Centennial at 5. 3 days into fermentation for the dry hop, we will use 0.25 ounces of each. Now this one, I was thinking about this one, what's that honey malt going to do? Because going back to some of the older ones, now this was bottled on 10/5/2019, 6.49%. I was thinking some of those older ones, some of the earlier Cascade Centennial beers, we did get some honey water out of some of them. Excuse me. I just got done doing beer 14 and 15, and I really didn't get that honey water. But I was thinking on this one, using honey malt, is that honey water after a while, after 6 months, going to go up? Because it seems like the sugar and the honey and maybe the malt are mixing to be kind of like a diluted honey water. But yeah, this one should be interesting. I can push on it a little bit, so if anything, I think this is a little softer than some of the other ones I've had in these 25 ounce bottles. So hopefully it's still carved, or it's carved well, as this is a reusable top. Let's go ahead and open it. See if we get a hiss. Good hiss. Go ahead and pour it in here. The color looks like honey. See, now this one, now this is a 25 ounce bottle where the other ones are either 12 ounce bottles or 22 ounce bottles. So this one could probably take a little carbonation, or take the carbonation better. I did not write down how many small pearl tablets I used or the big ones. So in this case, I'm not sure, but it's almost like I didn't use enough. It is circling around. I have like a spiral thing in there, which is kind of cool. But yeah, really no head where the last two were overcarved. White head or white bubbles, as I can see. Color. Yes, I would say more, almost like a Maris Otter color, like a lighter burnt orange, like a red-orange color. I can see through it. I can make the light box. I cannot see the bell sticker. It is hazy. I'm going to say, I don't know. It's, this being almost 6 months old, you would expect the protein yeast to really settle out. Maybe it is a little overcarbed. I can see some bubbles coming up in there, so maybe it still is a little overcarbed and we got some of that trub off the bottom, but there's a haziness to it. I can't believe that 4 ounces of the honey malt would do that, but maybe it can. Beer 15 and 14, we'll just go with beer 14, had 2 pounds 4 ounces of 2-row, and that was almost crystal clear. So maybe honey malt has a little bit more protein and it's staying around, or it is overcarb just a little bit, and when I opened it, it did send some of that trub up from the bottom. Let's go ahead and smell. Oh yeah, more of a honey sweetness, maybe a touch of citrus. I'm saying that we're using Cascade Centennial, but yeah, that honey sweetness, maltiness is what I get. It almost smells like a mead. I was going to say like a double IPA where you get that big maltiness, but this does smell, has a stronger honey smell than anything. Like, I wouldn't even say like a honey lemon tea. This is mainly honey. Honey malt. There is, like I said, a little bit of citrus in there, but for the most part, for somebody just coming by and smelling it, I'm guessing they're thinking this is a mead. Let's go ahead and taste. So you get that honey sweetness, maltiness, nice and subtle, almost, I don't want to say, almost like a brown. Like you would use a little bit more of a roasted malt in there, but a honey taste. It is a big time honey, but the thing that changes is mid palate to end. You do get some citrus, then a lot of bitterness in there. Um, it's almost like the IBUs are 50, 60 IBUs in there. That's the perceived, what I would think. It's almost like a red ale with more of a bitterness to it. I like that sweetness up front, that honey. It's nice and subtle. It stays, but then I'm not 100% sure about that citrus bitterness in the back. Aftertaste, you go back to that honey malt graininess in there with some citrus and bitterness. It's very smooth. Carbonation is probably a little low, which is kind of funny, but I guess it can happen. Yeah, it almost, there is some carbonation there because it doesn't just taste like water. There is a little bit there. But for the most part, I think it needs more carbonation. It is tasting a little flat. But for the most part, I do like it. I wish from the beginning taste to the end, I do wish that that bitterness was toned down just a little bit in this one. Um, it obviously doesn't taste like Maris Otter. It's more on the honey side. But yeah, it's almost like it's pushing to a brown. Like somebody made a lighter brown, or I always kind of use terms as we were making a brown, but we came up short on ingredients, so we just made what we had. Like a lighter brown, like they were trying to push it with a little bit more roasted malt, and they didn't have enough. So this is kind of what you're getting. It almost makes me think of fall in here. Almost 6.5%. It could be, I don't know if it's perceived. 6.5 bricks is probably pushing it pretty close. Because I was going to say, maybe there's a lot of leftover sugars in there, and that's kind of what's playing with that honey because there's a lot of sweetness, but I don't really think that's the case. But yeah, I think it's good. Now, would I brew it? Probably not, just because I don't know what that carbonation level is going to do. But will I drink this? Yes, I think this is perfectly fine. If you're more into those browns, lighter browns, definitely one to brew and maybe let sit. I have used that honey malt and others, and I do have one coming up that I used honey malt in. And I want to say those weren't as honey, but at least with this honey malt that I used, it seems like the longer you let it sit, the better it'll be. Maybe a porter or a stout to bring out a little bit of honey might be good in something like that. So yeah, solid beer, just not one I would brew without tasting one that's a little bit more carbonated. So if you like this video and you want to check out some more homebrew videos, check them out over here. And until next time, happy brewing.